Welcome, aspirants, to The Explainer. Today, we're going to lay the groundwork for your civil services preparation by breaking down the absolute core concepts of social science. Take a look at this. On one side, you've got a quiet, serene village. On the other, a massive, bustling city. Now, imagine you're the administrator here. How do you even begin to govern this kind of diversity? Well, the answer starts with a really solid understanding of social science. And this quote right here, it really gets to the heart of it. Social science isn't just some academic subject you have to study. Nope, it's a practical toolkit for solving real-world problems. To build a better future, you first have to understand the complex world we live in. Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start with the big why social science is so critical. Then we'll look at its key themes, and then dive into some really practical skills, like how to master maps and truly understand the Earth's grid system. So, first things first, let's really establish why this subject is the absolute bedrock of effective governance and public administration. Think about it this way. As a future administrator, your job is to get the how and why behind the communities you're going to serve. Social science gives you the framework to understand their needs, their histories, and the challenges they face, everything from social tension to environmental stress. All right, let's break down how the NCERT curriculum carves up this huge subject into 5 core themes that you'll see are directly relevant to your UPSC syllabus. Now, take a close look here. See how these themes map directly onto your general studies papers? Geography, history, art and culture. That's your GS Paper 1. Governance, that's a cornerstone of GS Paper 2. And economy is a huge part of GS Paper 3. So this isn't just a list, it's basically your exam framework in a nutshell. Okay, so let's build on that foundation and get into a really practical skill, mastering maps. This is an absolutely core concept for GS Paper 1 and, frankly, an essential tool for any administrator. So what is a map, really? At its core, it's just a bird's-eye view of a place. It's a structured way to understand how things relate to each other in a space, whether that's a small town or the entire globe. And here's the key takeaway, right? Every single map speaks to you using these 3 core components. Scale tells you how distance on paper relates to distance on the ground. Direction gets you oriented. And symbols, well, symbols are the universal language for things like roads and rivers. You master these 3, and you can read any map you come across. All right, so we've looked at flat maps. Now let's zoom out to the whole globe and talk about the coordinate system that governs our entire planet. You can think of it as a global address system. You can think of it just like a chessboard. This grid system lets us pinpoint any square, or in our case, any place on Earth with total precision. There's no ambiguity, just a clear location based on 2 simple numbers. First up, you've got latitude. These are the horizontal lines, the parallels, that run east-west. And here's the big connection to remember. Latitude is directly linked to climate. As you move away from the equator and your latitude increases, the climate generally gets colder. Simple as that. And then you have longitude. These are the vertical lines, the meridians, running from pole to pole. And if latitude is all about climate, longitude? Well, longitude is the key to understanding our next big topic, time. So way back in 1884, the world pretty much agreed that the line passing through Greenwich in London would be the big 0, the starting point for all longitude measurements. But, and this is important, Greenwich wasn't always the center of the world's map. And that brings us to a really fascinating and, frankly, a high-yield fact for your exams. Long before Greenwich was the standard, ancient India had its very own prime meridian, the Madhya Rekha, which passed right through Ujjain, a major hub for astronomy. It just shows how advanced India's understanding of this was centuries ago. Okay, so let's connect the dots. How does this imaginary line, longitude, dictate something as real and tangible as the time on your watch? It has massive administrative and economic implications. It all comes down to this one simple bit of math. The Earth spins 360 degrees in 24 hours. You do the division, and what do you get? 15 degrees of longitude for every single hour of rotation. That's the magic number. So in theory, it's a beautifully logical system, right? You just divide the world into 24 neat slices, each 15 degrees wide. You go east from Greenwich, time moves forward an hour. You go west, it moves back an hour. Simple. But we don't live in a theoretical world, do we? In reality, those neat lines get all zigzaggy because they have to follow international borders. And this right here explains the crucial difference between a place's local time, which is based on the sun, and a country's uniform standard time, which is all about administrative convenience. Which brings us to India, Our country stretches across almost 30 degrees of longitude. We could easily have 2 different time zones, but we don't. We have one, Indian Standard Time, or IST, set at GMT plus 5.5 hours. And why? To avoid total chaos in things like railways, banking, and administration all across the nation. Okay, so let's quickly pull it all together. We started with the big why of social science, and we've drilled all the way down to the specific grid that organizes our world and even our day. We've seen how these theoretical ideas connect directly to practical tools and the realities of administration. And as we wrap up, I'll leave you with that question to think about. Now that you've got these fundamentals down, how does it change the way you look at India's strategic location, its climate, or the administrative logic of having a single time zone? Use this foundational knowledge as a lens to analyze more complex topics in your preparation. Good luck.